Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to our first ever webinar for our panel discussion. This is a panel discussion today with four African American veterans, including myself, titled Black Vets, Black Voices. And what we're going to be doing today is talking about racial inequality and what it means to be an African American veteran and fight for equality for others on the front lines and for us here in America. My name is David Kendrick, owner of Lion Speaking Agency. I am a Purple Heart veteran. I served in the United States Army from 2005 to 2010. And on June 17th, 2007, I was shot in both legs in a sniper attack in Baghdad, Iraq, which caused me severe injuries. It broke my left leg, severed my femoral artery. And I had over 14 surgeries in the name of America and for freedom. And I'd like to welcome my other guest here, Miss Felicia Pritchett. Can you please introduce yourself to the panel?
Hi, my name is Felicia. I was in the Navy from 2003 to 2011.
All right. Next, we have Mrs. Stephanie Michelle.
Hey, I'm Stephanie. I served in the Army from 2000 to 2004 in the Chemical Corps.
Awesome. Then we have a very special friend of mine, my brother, who I actually served with in the Army on the front lines, Mr. Charlie Kennedy. Charlie, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello. I'm Charlie Kennedy. Like Kendrick said, I had the privilege of serving amongst heroes from 2004 to 2010.
Awesome. And you also have law enforcement experience. Is that right?
That is correct.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the discussion here. Starting with the recent events in Atlanta. The details are still coming out right now, but another African-American male was shot in the back, and it caused major unrest in the city of Atlanta. So, Felicia, I'll start with you. What do you think about the recent events with Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and now the young man who was shot over the weekend here in Atlanta? What do you think about what's going on?
Well, I think, should we be outraged? Yes, we should be outraged in any instance of injustice. But is just being outraged going to change anything? No, because there are laws in place that have been in place for years that should prevent things like this from happening. But it still occurs. So what I think needs to be addressed is not just the laws in general, but how police officers are getting that position. I feel like there needs to be some kind of pre-screening, psychological, mental health pre-screening so that people that have these kinds of issues that would cause them to have the tendencies to commit brutality can be found out and addressed. And I think this should be something that's not just like beforehand. It should be something that's reoccurring, maybe on a monthly basis, that you keep check on them because they're having these issues. They have these violent tendencies. That's something that they probably had way before they even joined. So, that's something that's in them. And if we can stop it from the beginning and say, hey, okay, well, there's a psychological evaluation and there are these issues, then we could say, hey, okay, well, he's not fit to be on the police force. It might not, get rid of every single person, but I think it would help a lot. And I think there should be a greater focus on mental health training in general, just as much as every other training. And that's something that should be, like I said, done on a monthly basis. Just like, every training that has to be reinforced or reintroduced mental health, they should have access to talk to a therapist. That should be something that's required. And I think there's a lot of training that needs to be there that would help a lot.
Okay. And Stephanie, I'll ask you the same question. Just what do you think about what's going on with the police brutality against African Americans here in the country?
It's heartbreaking. I learned as a child, that this was a part of history. a lot of things like police brutality. And so it's heartbreaking to learn, in my current day that it's really not history. It's still happening today. And it is really unfortunate. And I think that it's a big miscommunication. And when I say miscommunication, it's like we're speaking different languages. Even to have certain training to be able to identify certain needs and to be able to have certain training to respond to emergencies. Who leads this training? Who has developed this training? And do we speak the same language to recognize the same thing? Mental health and mental illness in the Black community look very different than the white community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community. And
Right.
so it's very unfortunate that we are in 2020 having these conversations about racial inequalities. I think change is long overdue. And it just really saddens me to see the scope of the world right now and the necessary moves that needs to take to continue to make change for all people.
Okay. And Charlie, I'll ask you the same question.
Sure. I don't want to disagree. I want to add to what Felicia, what Mrs. Pritchard said, and what Mrs. Michelle said. I really want to add to it, and I'd like to offer this as adding to it. I think in the American society, we have a stomach for violence toward African Americans. I think that I think we would have to be careful to lump in a lot of the great men and women that serve as law enforcement. I know for certain that it's not always that you know how a scene is going to go when you pull up on it. Sometimes you only have a few minutes to figure out how all of this is going to turn out. But I think that the violence that happens towards African Americans, it's quickly dismissed or quickly stomached in American society. And I think that kind of goes back to the system of systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
Is every officer that interacts with African American prejudice, racist, white supremacist? No. But I think that there is a sense of safety in knowing that if I am wrong, I will still be okay. And I think that's the danger that faces African Americans or people of color in this country, period. Just my opinion.
Okay. Perfect. Me, myself, many of these events happen here in Atlanta, and seeing Ahmaud Arbery just going for a jog and basically being hunted like Trayvon Martin did years ago, just being hunted by people who think that they see a threat. I personally don't think it's right. And, a lot of people, they see African Americans just minding their business and they think, okay, well, he looks suspicious. He shouldn't be walking in this neighborhood. He shouldn't be doing that. And they feel like they have the right to just come after us and do whatever they like to. And I don't think that that's right. They kind of, especially here in the South, they preserve Southern values and that Southern pride, which is going to lead me to my next question for the panel here. Recently, there has been a movement to remove to change the names of some of the bases that are named after Confederate generals and other Confederate soldiers. Now, all of us being military veterans, what do you think about this movement with some of these bases who are named after Confederate generals and these Confederate soldiers who fought for the Confederate Army? And I'll start with Stephanie on that question.
It was shocking to me to learn that there were the number of bases named after Confederate soldiers. It just baffled me. Like, I'm having to learn that there are bases named after Confederate soldiers, and at the same time, I'm having to watch them take statues down and change names. This was a lot for me to take in at one time. it makes me wonder, why were they even named after Confederate soldiers in the first place? So you have these bases who were named after Confederate soldiers and even leaders. You have African Americans stationed on these bases. There's racial inequality, even in the military. These questions about, is this fair and is this right? And am I being treated fair? I think changing the names of these bases is, I think that it's a huge step for soldiers. I think it's a huge step for the whole military, Black community, any minority community in the military, but even the white community. You know, a lot of things start from the ground up. A lot of things start with the military, right? I think when we look at racial inequality and racial justice, I think when we look at race as a whole, be inclusive. And if we can't be inclusive from the names of bases, then that's gonna promote problems stateside and abroad. I'm glad they're changing the names of these bases.
Okay. Felicia, I'll ask you that question with a little twist on it. So these bases are named after these Confederate soldiers and generals, and there's a lot of people who want to keep these names the same because they are a part of history. So what do you think about those who want to fight to preserve the names of these Confederate generals on these military bases that all races now serve under?
I think that just changing the name in general, I don't think it does anything, because words only have the power that you give them. So changing the name is not going to get rid of negativity. It's not going to get rid of racism. That's still going to be there. So changing the name is not going to affect anything. And for people that want to hold on to the name because they say it's part of their heritage, I wonder, I mean, how would they feel if, you know, it was changed to someone who was prominent in African American history? You know, if they change the name to that, would they feel like, you know, we have a right to have that name because it's part of our heritage and it's part of our history? I don't think it would be the same.
Okay, good point. And Kennedy, I'll ask you that same question with a twist on it as well. So you have combat experience. So as a combat veteran, how do you feel going overseas and defending the country in combat and then coming back to a base that was named after a general who didn't want African Americans to be free?
You know, that's the I guess that's the irony of being an African American soldier, because you're always having to make a decision. You're always having to decide between two things that you shouldn't have to decide between. You know, personally, I swore an oath, as every soldier there who swore an oath. And it's the irony of saying that two flags are flying at the same exact time. Two ideologies are in the same room, yet you're sending me overseas to tear down another ideology. There's just so much conflict and confusion there. You know, but like Felicia said, words only have the power you give. You know, systemic racism is entrenched in the heart of people. It's in the hearts of people. So even though I wasn't aware or maybe not sure of the history of those names or the history of those bases, I could see a living, a very active, a very breathing systemic racism. So, you know, it's got to start at the heart. The bases, the names. I would love for that to change. It gives our future soldiers hope, but it's got to go beyond tearing down the statues, beyond tearing down those names. It's really got to start at the
heart. Okay. And Kennedy, I'll stay with you for my next question. So you and we served together in Iraq in 2006 to 2007, and we were about 5 of the 5 Black African American veterans who served in our unit at the time as cavalry scouts. And we did our job alongside every single race with no problem. We didn't face any discrimination or prejudice while we served. But what do you think that the African American soldiers who are deployed now, what do you think they think about what's going on here in the United States? Do you think that they will be proud to defend this country when you have so many law enforcement policemen who are killing African Americans out here?
Well, I guess to that I would say, kind of alluding back to what I said earlier about systemic racism and how that racism really is a team sport. It takes a lot of people to make it work. And it takes ideology even from African Americans, even from Caucasians, even from Spanish, even from Asian. It takes all of these different ideologies to make racism work. So when we're talking about a soldier who is standing from his position and looking at the current state of America, once again, it's got to start at his heart. He's got to see what the people are saying. And if he doesn't see what the people are saying, he really wouldn't understand, or really wouldn't make sense. There is a diversity there. There's a line drawn in the sand there. But at the same time, I respect. That makes sense. So I hope that answers that question. I mean, I know they see it. I know they understand it. But do they share in the belief that racism and white supremacy must completely? It's always the
question. Okay. Now I'll get into some individual questions here. So, Felicia, you have dreadlocks, which is prominent in the African American community. Now it seems like we have a lot of rules and regulations and laws in schools and in government in certain positions that are targeted to discriminate African American hairstyles. So as a female with dreadlocks, can you tell us if you've ever felt like you've tried to go for a position and you were discriminated against because of your hairstyle?
Personally, I've never had that issue, because I'm always presentable wherever I go. I know how I can put my hair up in a bun. I can make sure that it's nice and neat. Because that's part of me, my professional appearance. But when years ago, right out of high school, my first job, I worked part-time, and the boss that I worked for was really strict about rules when it came to appearance. You could only have a certain color of nails, and you cannot have braids, any braids or natural hair. It wasn't okay. It wasn't professional to him. So everything had to be nice and neat. And I didn't have locks at the time. I had really short hair, so it wasn't really an issue. But I saw how it affected other people, because at the time, everybody was getting braids. And then he was like, well, no, you can't do that. That's not okay, because that's not professional. It doesn't look good. And he was African American, but that was just part of, that was just the way he was. And he's different now. But at the time, it was an issue. And I haven't, my son had locks, and we were in Hawaii, and it wasn't really an issue. But I did have a parent that was upset, and she was Caucasian, but her son had really, really long hair. So the school was like, it's not okay, because he looks like a girl, so you need to do something about it. He needs to have it cut. And she was outraged about it, and she was like, well, we're just gonna end up having to go to another school. And and it made me see it from a different angle, because I was like, that was the last thing I would think that would happen, but yeah, it was a big issue. And they were like, he needs to cut his hair, because it's not okay. It's not within standards. It's not nice and neat, so it's not within standards. But personally, I haven't had an issue to where I didn't get a job because of my hair or anything like that. But I've seen it happen to other people, and I've heard other people, and my friends talk about, well, I went on an interview and they were like, can you do something with your hair? Because they had locks, or, or, and it was an issue, and they ended up not getting the job, and they felt like that was a reason. Wow. And I don't think that's an issue, because it has nothing to do with whether or not you're qualified to do the job. It has nothing to do with your qualification. It has nothing to do with your intelligence or anything. So, I don't see why it should be an issue. I don't see why it's okay for it to be an issue.
Wow. Okay. Moving on here to Mrs. Stephanie. Now, as a Black woman, do you ever feel like you have to work harder than others to earn respect in this country? And have you ever had to tell people that you're a veteran so that they would respect you?
That's a very good question. I don't feel like I have to work harder. I don't think that I have to, do things to earn respect. Until I see that other people are not working as hard and other people are more respected. So it's not really about what I think or feel. It's kind of the reality of being a Black woman in America. And when I say I don't think that I have to work harder, I'm born this way, right? So I have looked at my life as there's nothing too hard that I can't. There's nothing that limits me from succeeding. But then we have these platforms and we ask these questions, and I look over the progress of my personal life. And if I were to judge it amongst other people and their progression, I do begin to wonder, well, wow, how did they get this far? And so the reality is, I work to my max, and not to earn respect, but just to be in seats and stay in these seats, to be in positions and stay in this position. Mm-hmm. I work to my max. But like I said, I just was born to be able to know what I'm able to do. And yeah, I have a woman veterans tag on my car. Now, my veteran status is something I'm really proud of. It's something that I'm not defined then by my skin color. If I am, I don't pay attention to it because I don't really socialize in those networks. But in my mind frame, I'm not, to me, right around with those veteran tags, this is who I am, right? Like, mm-hmm. I serve, there's no question about if, is my husband the veteran, like who wore the uniform? To me, there's no question. And I honestly can tell the difference riding with veteran tags and riding a car when I'm driving and I don't have veteran tags. There's a bit more confidence in that. Now I feel like I can't be questioned if I belong here. Let proof show that I shed blood on foreign land. Let proof show that I don these boots and put on this uniform. Is it fair that I have to think like that in order to feel inclusive in this country that I was born in? I don't get into those conversations because at the end of the day, this is just what it is. It's unfortunate, though, to be honest. It's unfortunate to me that I have to live this life and think that, oh, it's okay for me to work this hard and this person to not work as hard and they get more promotions than me. It's unfortunate that I have to strategically ignore, as Maya Angelou said, put on a mask. It's so unfortunate that I have to put on a mask. I have to smile through tears. I have to work to my max. I have to feel confident with the veteran tag in order to feel inclusive in a place that I was born. When I say I have to, I feel the need to, because I'm a Black woman in America. I was born this way.
Wow. That's a great answer. Great answer. Kennedy, my next question is going to be aimed toward you. Mm-hmm. So you and I served together and went to basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky for Cow Scout training. And in preparing to train for Iraq, we learned about escalation of force and the need to use deadly force, lethal force. Now, while serving in Iraq if we were to do something in the community that the community didn't agree with, if we were to, let's just say, kill unarmed civilians, we will be putting our battle buddies in harm's way. There may be an ID waiting for us the very next day. So I want to ask you about escalation of force. Do you think that there is a higher, or you don't see escalation of force when it comes to dealing with African American men in law enforcement? Do you think that deadly force is used more than it should be?
I personally do believe that deadly force is used more towards African. I think that's the go-to for African Americans. I really do. And I believe that that's in place, one, because of the stomach that America has for the death of African Americans and people of color. I think that America stomachs it very well. Two, I think there's a level of, I say this respectfully, right? So not to belittle, not to be indifferent, but I think there's a sense of fear when it comes to dealing with African Americans.
I agree.
I think there's this belief that maybe it stems from the old ancient racism that you couldn't reason with, that you can't talk to us, you can't de-escalate a situation. I think that everything that the African American or person of color does towards an officer, that officer is given a blank check to defend his life at the slightest threat. And that's dangerous for African Americans.
Perfect. You know, while serving at Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, sometimes I would go to Denver, and on the way there, I always used to go in uniform and go to Castle Rock, the outlet malls, to go shopping. And people used to always ask me, "Why are you going in uniform?" And I would go with other soldiers as well who went in civilian clothes, and I would let them know, you guys just wouldn't understand. If I go in uniform, nobody's going to think that I'm there shopping in these high-end stores trying to steal something because I'm in uniform. And when that uniform is on, you get people who say, "Thank you for your service," or "You're a soldier, thank you so much." But as soon as that uniform comes off, I'm a threat, just like you said, Charlie. I'm a black man, a big black man with a beard. And now, just because I took my uniform off, I can't afford to shop in these stores, or I get followed around while in the stores. And I have a Purple Heart. I took 2 bullets for the country. But as soon as that uniform comes off, there's no more "Thank you for your service," or "I'm glad you served, I'm glad you made it back," or "Welcome home." Now it's, "What are you doing in the store? Can I help you?" They make sure that I'm greeted extra loud to make sure that they know I'm watching them when I walk through the stores. So I definitely can relate when you say that the average black man is a threat. And we're just trying to do things like everybody else is trying to do, enjoy the freedoms that we fought for and shed blood for on the front lines. And my next question here is going to be aimed toward everyone in the panel. So Felicia, I'm going to start with you. So you have sons. So what do you tell your sons when it comes to everything that's going on right now in the world? And do you have to tell them any special rules when it comes to dealing with law enforcement?
Well, I mean, the everything that's going on right now is not a big subject conversation in our household. I try to create a safe environment for them to speak about whatever is bothering them. And, and if it's something that they come to me and they want to talk about, we do talk about it. And we talk about how there are good and bad people of all races. And they know that all police aren't bad. And they know that, they're good and bad police officers. And I don't teach them to fear police officers, because fear causes irrational behavior. Mm-hmm. And I have a different situation in that my sons are biracial. So, I don't encourage them to, say one side of their heritage is more than the other. We discuss both sides, and I want them to be proud of it, and I don't, I make sure we talk about how to deal with, them being bullied or picked on or discriminated against because they are different. And we talk about, okay, so, if this is happening, then what do you do? And we talk about educated ways to deal with it instead of resorting to violence or to get upset, because I talk to them about who they are as a person and help them to be proud of themselves, to know that no one can tell me that I'm any less than anyone else, and I feel like that's something that we have to do within the home every single day, remind them so that when they go out, then that's kind of an armor. So they can say, okay, well, if this person doesn't like me because of their color of their skin, then that's the issue that they have. Because of the color of my skin, that's the issue that they have. Or they don't like me because I'm different, then that's the issue that they have. But they are aware of what's going on, and but they can't help but to be, because it's prevalent everywhere. But it's not something to where I'm like, okay, well, you need to be afraid, because to me, fear just makes things worse. They know what's going on. Let them, they're free to talk about it, but I'm not going to be afraid. And I wouldn't want them to be afraid that they can't do anything, because them being afraid isn't going to make it less likely to happen. And I can't protect them when they're not with me. I can't say that, because I've told them this, then there's a guarantee that they're going to be fine, or they're not going to have issues with the police. There's nothing that I can do to guarantee that. But the main thing is I don't want them to be afraid.
Okay. And Stephanie, I'll ask you the same question. You have sons as well. How do you tell your sons about what's going on in the world today? And do you tell them that there are different rules for African American males when it comes to dealing with the police?
I'll try to answer this without getting emotional, because I am a mom of Black boys, and I don't have sit-down talks with my teenager or 6-year-old about engaging with the police. I strategically teach them things about education. I see the police brutality, and I see the Trayvon Martins, and I see the Emmett Tills. I just see a history that is happening in my lifetime. So it causes me to strategically plan education and outings and dinners and conversations around the world that we live in. I was born in 81. I was not born even before the 60s. It's like asking a fish in the water, how does the water feel? Right? And so I don't like to strategically plan my parenting around the world that's going on here because of our skin color. Let me strategize business moves for my boys. Let me strategize things like science experiments, because they love that kind of stuff. Let me do that because this is what we love. But to strategically plan my parenting because of our skin color is exhausting to me. I don't have sit-down conversations about if the police approach you, because I raise them in a way that they should go, that the police won't approach you in any violent behavior. But I purposely turn on the news when they're in my presence so that they can see that mommy is concerned about this. Do I sit them down and say, watch this with me? No, I don't do that. Do I plan the places that we live to make sure there's enough Blacks and enough whites and enough Asians and Hispanics and others for that matter? Do I plan where we live because of our skin color? Yes, I have Black boys. I want to live down the street from my mom, but it's probably a little safer for me to live in a place that's an hour away from her because I have Black boys. It's exhausting to me. My boys are 6 and 13. My 13-year-old is like, excited to be able to drive. And I want to put him in the driver's seat because I live in the South and we can do certain things in the South, like put him in the driver's seat and drive to a stop sign and teach him how to stop and go, or put him on a four-wheeler. But I can't help but think when I see my growing boy, who is now standing taller than me, he's going to be out in the world one day. He's going to have these conversations. So now I'm like, son, put both hands on the wheel. Whether it's a policeman or another pedestrian, they need to see you driving with both hands on the wheel. They need to see that you're safe. Do I want to teach my kids that your actions matter because of what other people think? No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to teach my kids that they have to live according to what other people think because other people are judging them so hard that they might lose their life. I don't want to do that. Do I want to wear a mask outside of my home, subliminal or natural? Do I want to plan what I wear according to where I'm going? And do I want to let my locks down today because I'm at home, but tomorrow I want to pull them up because I'm going into the school system that I work in and it's predominantly white employees? Do I want to teach my kids that this is how you are when you're out of the house, and this is how you are at a restaurant, this is how you are when you're in school, this is how you are when you're in church, but when you're at home, you can be this way? Do I want to teach my kids that it's okay to have all of these personalities within themselves and then teach them that it's important to get your mental health checked out? Come on, I think that it is beyond just, or even the injustice thereof, to strategically teach my Black boys how to be in America. Are we going to teach a fish how to be in water? Bruh, like, it's exhausting to me. But I do what I got to do because I was born this way, and they are too. Like, they're born this way. So I teach them how to be human. This is our humanity.
Very good points. Very good points. Charlie, on to you. Now, you have daughters. So how do you tell your daughters how to interact with police? And what do you tell your daughters about what's going on in the world? And how do you think your daughters feel that as a veteran, you went overseas and fought to protect them from the terrorists and guys who want to do us harm, but there's harm being done to us by the same people in the country who took an oath to protect us?
Right. So that's an amazing question. I'm going to use this word, and I hope this doesn't make y'all upset, but I get a special privilege, right? I've got two girls, two very, very, very intelligent girls. My daughters had the privilege at an early age to see me in police uniforms. My daughters had the privilege of meeting other officers. My daughters know that officers outside of that uniform or inside of that uniform are just regular human beings. I'm careful personally not to sway or guide my daughter's opinions of America, because I really want to give them America unboxed. I want to give them America still wrapped up. But at the same time, I'm very, 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 very honest with my daughters about everything. There's not a topic or a subject, hopefully, that we haven't talked about and discussed. And I hope they can form their own opinion. You see, I feel personally like if I was speaking to someone in 1826, their opinion of America would be very different than my opinion of 2020 America. And I understand that my daughters, when they reach 40 years old, if God is willing, the problems that we see in America will have ceased. Just believe it can be possible. But if the problems in America have ceased, if the hearts of the people have changed, if we have outlawed racism and white supremacy in America, by the time my children are older, I don't want them referring back to even 2020 to form an opinion about a matter that they're facing at a particular time. So I give them the facts. I give them all the tools, but I don't build the building. I give them nails. I give them screws. I give them hammers, screwdrivers, tape measures. I give them all the tools, but I don't build the building. I really want this to be their country. I'm also fortunate in the sense that my wife is from Trinidad. I was fortunate to do a little research on Trinidad, and one of the most interesting things I found about Trinidad was that the slavery system in Trinidad allowed for the father to stay in the home. The queen wouldn't break up the family structure in Trinidad and some of your islands. They allowed the family to stay together and still be servants, still be slaves, so on and so forth. Well, that structure that we have in America was very different. The slavery system here could care less if they were shredding the whole family. It was about economics, business, point blank, period. So when my wife comes and approaches the same subjects of racism here in America, being from Trinidad, growing in a Trinidadian family, her views are just totally different than my views. But I believe that those views are just as healthy for my children as the views that I've experienced. So I'm careful with the topic of race with my daughters, although I don't sugarcoat none of it. I don't hold back none of it. This is what you're dealing with. This is what you're going to face. Do what you got to do to survive. That's my opinion.
Perfect. I thank all three of you for sharing those, stories about your children with us here, and those who are watching online. I like to move the conversation to something that is making a lot of headlines right now, and that is the NFL. So a few years ago, Colin Kaepernick, he started taking a knee during the national anthem as a peaceful protest against police brutality against African Americans. And he got blackballed out of the NFL. Nobody wanted to sign him. And they said that he was disrespecting our flag here, disrespecting the flag, disrespecting the troops. And no one wanted to have anything to do with him. He hasn't worked in the NFL in a couple of years now. Fast forward to 2010, and now people are seeing what he was kneeling for. But there are still some who say that it is disrespectful to the flag and disrespectful to the troops. And I was having a conversation with someone and said, well, I am the troops. And I don't find it disrespectful because before I was a soldier and after I was a soldier, I was a black man. And I know what he was fighting for. I wasn't born in a uniform. I was born in this black skin. And I don't see why you would be upset about what he's protesting against. He's protesting against police brutality against African Americans. It's not disrespectful to me. It's not disrespectful to the flag. I got shot twice for that flag while defending our country overseas. But I'd like to ask all of you, and I'll start with Stephanie, what do you think about the peaceful protests and people saying that it's disrespectful for someone to kneel during the national anthem when what they're kneeling for is racial equality? What do you think about that?
Who are you starting?
Stephanie.
Okay.
Yeah, ask that question again.
So what do you think about those who say that the peaceful protesting during the national anthem is disrespectful? For those who take a knee and protest against police brutality against African Americans during the national anthem at sporting events?
It to me is it's a respectable gesture to speak, your view, their view. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. We have an African flag. We're African American, right? So there's an African flag, there's an American flag, and there are a lot of flags that represent cultures. And I just think people have the right to decide if they want to make a pledge to a certain flag. I don't think that it's disrespectful at all. I think it's rather disrespectful for people to start saying that it's disrespectful. You know, it's like, okay, I don't eat pork. Am I being disrespectful if I go in someone's house and say, no, thank you, I don't want to eat pork? You know what I mean? It's a view that should be respected. It's not like they're tearing up the flag, stomping on it, burning it. It's not like they're being disrespectful to, they're actually respecting the flag by taking a knee. You know, in the NFL and in sports, when somebody is injured, they take a knee. They don't chaotically run out onto the field and everyone try to give help to a person. They take a knee and they allow the professionals in charge to handle the situation. Right? These people that took an oath, these people who has pledged a responsibility to things like health of sports players. Okay, so then there's this flag. No, I just don't think that it's disrespectful for someone to take a knee. I don't think that it's a problem. I think that in America, my gosh, we make big problems out of almost anything. Yeah, we make big problems make headlines. We do that. But no, like I don't think at all that it's a problem.
Okay. All right, Felicia, I'll ask you the same question. What do you think about those who say that kneeling is disrespectful to the flag, a flag which you wore proudly on your uniform while serving in the Navy? What do you think about that? You're still on mute. There we go.
I think that for someone to say that taking a knee is disrespectful to the flag, it's not about the flag. It's about saying that, okay, that, you know, what the national anthem in general represents may not hold true for everyone. You know, and all the freedoms they're not granted to everybody. And, you know, so, I mean, it's a respectful way because you're still showing respect. To turn your back against the flag would be respectful, but that's not what's being done. So I don't think it's disrespectful at all. It's just a sign saying, okay, you know, it's not okay. There are things that are going on that, you know, don't affect everybody. And it's, you know, the freedoms that were what the national anthem represented does not apply to everybody. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean the same to everybody, you know. So I don't think it's disrespectful at all.
Okay. And Charlie, I'll ask you the same question. With you being a combat veteran and going and fighting for the country and going through everything that we went through together while serving in Iraq, do you think that what Colin Kaepernick was dealing for is disrespectful?
No, I don't. You know, I guess the 3 points I make, you know, I heard it once said one time that Rosa Parks was not protesting the cushions on the bus. I think all of America knows what Kaepernick was saying. All of America understood what Kaepernick was saying. And I only say they understood what he was saying because first, they took everything Kaepernick out of his stores. Two, there's a saying that went on here in the South, and I saw it a lot on my feeds. Just heard it, I saw T-shirts, and there was this comment that was made. It was something to the effect of, "I'll stand for the flag, but kneel at the cross." And when I heard that statement, or when I seen that statement, it just kind of, you know, it just seemed me the concept to me that you do understand what we're talking about. You do know what we're saying. You do know what Kaepernick is saying. You do understand that there's a certain percentage of Americans that believe that there's a problem. But changing the narrative or insulting the person or belittling the person is just your attack on problem. It's an attack on the people that's voicing concerns of. So as a country, everyone here knows what Kaepernick was. Everyone. And if they didn't know then, I guarantee you they know now. But everyone knew. Everyone understood. It had nothing to do with this. No, every American citizen, even worldwide, they love that flag. They love this country. We just hate tyranny. We hate inequality. And the world hates to see it coming from America because we in America are the world's example of breaking oppression. So it's even more hurtful when we see it coming from America. And everyone knows Kaepernick was not. We all know. That's my opinion. We know.
Perfect. And this is the last question that I'll go around and ask you guys, and I'll give my feedback at the end. So when we serve, we take an oath to protect everyone in this country from enemies, both foreign and domestic. There are no asterisks. We don't take an oath to only defend Black people. We defend everybody under the red, white, and blue. Everyone under that flag. We go to war. We fight for that right. African American veterans in the past, like Tuskegee Airmen, took an oath not only to defend Black people, but everyone. So what does it mean? I'm going to go around starting with Felicia. What does it mean to you to be a veteran?
I take pride in it because it was something that I chose to do. I loved being in the military, and I mean, if it were up to me, I would still be in the military. But look, I worked with people that showed us every day why we should be proud. We were doing something that we should be proud of. Did I work with people that didn't believe the same things that I did, or didn't share the same beliefs that I did, or might have looked at me as less than because of the color of my skin? Yes, but at the end of the day, they didn't have anything to do with me doing my job. It was something that had to be done, and I felt proud for standing up to do it. And I mean, I wouldn't feel any other way, regardless of whether the person next to me was thinking that I was less than because I was Black, or thinking that I was less than because I was female. Because when it came down to it, regardless of what they thought, when it came to doing a job, we worked together, and there was no question. I could count on that person to be there to help me, to defend me, to do the job that we're supposed to do, regardless of what they were thinking about me, or, that didn't have anything to do with it. So I looked at them the same way. I'm like, I can tell that you don't like me because of whatever reason, but when it comes down to doing the job that we signed on to do, we do it. All that is put aside and we do it.
Perfect. Stephanie, I'll go to you and ask you the same question here. What does it mean to be a veteran to you?
To me, like Felicia said, I take pride in it. It's personal, right? So I grew up in an African American home. I was born here in America, and I have sisters who are African. And I grew up understanding that people make sacrifices for the longevity of humanity. I, like Felicia, chose to serve in the military. And I take pride in that. I take pride in being the first African American to, own a German vehicle in Korea. I take pride in certain things that I can tell my children. I take pride in how I contributed to America. I was born here. Like, I love America. Do I like certain views of certain leaders? No, but I absolutely take pride in the uniform that I wore, right? The flag that's on it, the training that I got, the leaders that were with me, the battle buddies that were alongside of me, the relationships I developed, and now being able to be active in a community of veterans who used to serve, maybe still serve. I just think it's amazing. It gives us something to look forward to.
Perfect. Charlie, same question. What does it mean to you to be a veteran?
For honestly, it was one of the greatest honors to have the opportunity to be that close to so many heroes, that close to so many amazing people. I was the lucky. I was I got to be around your Eric Snells, your Alexander Fullers, your Jory Browns, your David Kendricks, your Jerry Adamsons. I could go on forever with the heroes that I was fortunate enough to be around. Just touching back on what you mentioned earlier about how that you wore your uniform as a sense of pride so that the world didn't see you as less of a threat. And for me, it was a sense of identity. Being a veteran, it's still a sense of identity for me. It tells people that I at least had enough strength to make it through basic training to be able to stand and march beside these amazing men and women. So, it means a lot to be counted in among that crowd. It really does.
Perfect. And I'll say what it means to me. I'll try my best not to cry here. But I joined the Army in 2005 when I was 18 years old. I wasn't all patriotic when I joined. I joined because I wanted to get out of my hometown of Rochester, New York. But when I joined, I met some of the best people in my life. And all we knew in basic training, you was either dark green, light green, or medium green. It wasn't no black and white, because when it came down to it, that person next to you was your brother. And when I got shot, Kevin Bailey jumped on top of me and he took 2 bullets for me. And he's white. He took 2 bullets from me. And then Michael Hamilton put 3 tourniquets on my leg to stop the bleeding. And he was white. He didn't look at color. He said, "That's my brother. We fight for this same flag. Kendrick has a family he has to get to, and I'm going to make sure that he gets back. I love this man so much that I'm going to jump on top of him and get shot twice for him because I don't see color." And what I see here in the United States, it kills me, because this is not what I fought for. This is not what I got shot for 13 years ago. This year, it'll be 13 years since I was shot in both legs when I was 20 years old. And I got shot defending all lives. All lives do matter. Yes, they do. But right now, it's Black lives in this country that are being targeted. And it's not the America that I deployed to and fought for. And it's not the America that I lost my best friend to, Eric Lamar Snell, 13 years ago as well. It's not the America that he gave his life for. And what I see what's happening in the world to Black and brown people, I almost get ashamed that I fought for these people who want to preserve slavery and these Confederate lifestyles, who want to preserve the memory of so much hate in this country that people like me couldn't even fight on the front lines because we weren't even considered a whole person. And to be part of a lineage such as the Tuskegee Airmen and the Buffalo Soldiers, who made it possible for all of us to fight today. It's not what those African-American veterans fought for back then, and it's not what I fought for in Iraq in 2007, and it's not what the African-Americans who are deployed right now are fighting for. We all love this country, and all lives do matter. But it's the African-American lives right now that are being threatened. So that's the end of the panel discussion. I want to thank you all for coming in and joining, and those who watched online. This is a wonderful conversation. The first time I've ever done anything like this, I was really nervous. And I'm going to post this on all of my social media channels. You can follow our website, dkendrickjr.com. You can follow Lion Speaking Agency on social media. And you can also follow me or follow the website or Lion Speaking Agency on Twitter. It's at LSALLC. Felicia, Stephanie, Charlie, and for those of you who are watching at home, I thank you so much for being part of this conversation. It's the first, but it definitely will not be the last. Thank you all. I'm going to end the broadcast now, and I ask that you guys please stay on while I end the broadcast. Thank you, everyone who's watching online. This is the end of the panel discussion. I hope you enjoy, and please share the replay with those on your social media. Thank you, guys, and have a great day.
Take care. Stay safe out there.
All right.
Bye.